So in this video we're going to be looking at kind of a different build than you'd normally expect, and this one is my Fisherman. So the idea here is you're not really going to be fighting a lot of monsters. This is more of a semi-AFK activity or just something you probably want to do in an alt account while you're playing a different character or a different game or just kind of busy in real life. So the idea behind this is, I mean, you could fish in town. A lot of people like fishing in town because there's special rewards at the Brit mode if you do that. But the other options are shore fishing or deep sea fishing like I'm going to be doing right now. So the build itself is kind of unique in that it doesn't really have a lot of fighting abilities, but it has kind of a couple of unique things that are specific for this exact activity, so it's not really going to be useful for anything else. So this particular one is actually reflected between my melee tank and the Fisherman. So what we have here, you can see the skills. So we have musicianship, peacemaking, swordsmanship, healing, anatomy, and fishing. So as you can see, it doesn't really have like a great build for farming a lot of mobs, but the idea behind this is when you're deep sea fishing, you're going to be every once in a while pulling up monsters. And there's a couple of things you can do with them. You can ignore them, or you can fight them. And I really think like the easiest way to deal with that, because some of them are pretty bad, they'll become like poison elementals, and it's kind of difficult to fight those. A lot of people will do a summoner, but I just don't really like having to summon a full pet every single time I want to kill, say, a water elemental. So what I just have is swordsmanship, and I'll have some sort of weapon. Right now I just have this elemental slaying one, and then also you'll have peacemaking, so you can peacemake the mobs when they spawn. And so that's basically it with the build. So what you're going to be doing is you're just going to be setting up a macro to fish. So for example, if I go to my macro section, I will have one here for fishing. And the idea behind it is I'm going to be using my secondary ability, which is the repeat, like fish last target, and then I'll sleep. And then I have a bandage self macro. And I feel this is a very important thing to have on this particular macro. And simply because if you aren't paying attention and a monster spawns and starts attacking you, you'll die pretty quickly. But with the bandage macro, and especially staying centered in the boat, the monsters can't actually attack you here other than with spells. And so if you have that bandage macro, you'll be able to hail through it pretty much indefinitely as long as you have bandages. So it's pretty important to have that. It allows you a little less chance of dying when you're doing this, and overall just very useful. So that being said, you basically just equip a fishing rod on your boat, click the spot you want to fish, and then you're going to hit the fishing macro like that. And basically just like that, you'll be fishing away. And obviously the fish will run out, so you'll want to move around every once in a while to do that. And sometimes the capture will come up, and you can fit, as long as you don't actually try to do the capture, it's not going to kill you. The idea being is like once the catch has started, you're no longer able to just continue fishing until you deal with it. And that kind of prevents people from just fishing, say, for 24 hours without even looking at it and coming back to a big stack of loot. You're only really going to realistically be able to AFK fish for a couple minutes before you get hit by a captcha. And then the idea being that if you try to beat that system by doing some sort of macro to click the captchas, that's when you'll die. So that's kind of like the reasoning behind it, or the reasoning I understand behind it. So now, say if a mob does spawn while you're fishing, and we can see one's over here, it's a pretty easy thing to deal with. See, I already fished this one up, so these are some of the things that can be fished up. So, as you can see, it's hitting me now. So if I was fishing with my AFK macro here, if I put my fishing rod back on, and I have that AFK macro going, even though he's hitting me with that spell, I'm going to be healing myself, so it's not going to kill me. But then if you do want to fight the mobs, because they do often drop a lot of cool goodies, you just put on your weapon, and just move your boat up to where they are. So I'll move this here, like that, move it over one, and now he's on my boat. So our water elemental's easy, but just in case it was a harder one, you can piece it, and attack it, and it'll die just like that. And so that's basically the build. It's kind of just a nice relaxing build you can do. You can collect the fishing rares, you can collect fish to make golden aetherfish, which sell very well. And yeah, that's it for this video.